Hello and thank you for watching. My name is Matthew Lefebvre and this is Blue Rim Design. In this video today we're going to be actually starting the second part of the hamburger menu series, where we're actually going to start building out the navigation, and we're going to start the navigation off with the mobile navigation. Now, in order to save some time, because I don't want another 20-minute long video about this simple concept, I actually have all of the markup that we need written out here. And I'll just go ahead and explain some of that to you. So we're going to try to be semantic and use as many tags, HTML tags in here that actually have meaning as we can. So first things first is everything is comprised inside of a header tag here. Now if you think about the web, commonly your navigation is actually a part of, or at least right below, your header navigation. And for the kind of navigation that we're going to be making today that is going to be mobile responsive, in an additional video we're actually going to go over how to make that change as we our screens grow larger, and there are literally so many options that we can have. But today we're just focusing on the mobile aspect of it. So I have a class on this header, and it's just HDR. I like to kind of prefix class names where I can. And you might look at this and see that it seems a little bit repetitive. Why not just use the header tag selector in my CSS instead of using a class selector? And generally it's best practice to actually have classes that describe your tags and use those instead. I'm a huge advocate of just using classes actually in style sheets and not using anything else other than pseudo selectors, or if there is really a tag that you have to use, like the body tag, for example. We have a few styles in here to help CodePen out organizing things. I do that, but generally it's all just classes. I feel like it keeps it neat and clean. Alright, now that we understand that, we have a little box inside of our header, as you can see over here, with a span inside of it, and the span is called mock logo, and both the box and the span that the logo is inside of have their respective classes. Hopefully this little snippet, next snippet of divs, is a little familiar to you. It's the menu button box and menu button. If you haven't seen that video yet, that's a great place to start with this series, so I will have it pop up right now, and so you can go ahead and click on that and go to that video if you have not yet seen how to create a hamburger menu. Underneath this, we're actually getting into the guts of the navigation, and we're just using, like I said, those HTML semantic tags, the nav tag with the class of nav. And we have a nav list, so inside of this list we're going to maintain all of our links, all of the elements inside of our nav. Generally in navigations there's just some text with maybe a cool, I don't know, little flurry of CSS that helps you recognize that it's part of the main site navigation. In order to accomplish all that, we have split things into nav items and nav links. And as you guys may already know, an anchor tag is an inline element. That means that it is not block level. It's not a block level element. Block level elements take up basically as much space as they can, while inline elements shrink to the size of their content. I'll illustrate this more in a future video, I promise. If this really is an issue that you're having to understand, inline and block level, you can go ahead and ask a question about it in the comments, and I'll be sure to respond to it. Or if you have any questions about inline or any other kind of positioning too, feel free to ask them, and I'll help you as well as I can. Alright, and so that's pretty much it for HTML markup. Let's take a quick look at what it's actually doing, and then we'll dive into how we'll style and actually create this. Over here we have our logo, as we saw before, our little hamburger menu, and our navigation. Really, it's pretty bare bones, so we're gonna have to do a lot of stuff kind of on our own. Now I am starting this. I've actually completed this activity before multiple times, but I'm not going to be referencing any other codes. So there might be some trial and error in this, so it'll be a nice opportunity for you to see kind of how I go through bug fixing and style sheets and stuff like that, so that you can maybe choose to incorporate some of those habits into your own style writing. But I'm going to go ahead and start with those styles. And we're going to go ahead and give our header a position of relative. We're going to do this first because relative positioning, I'll probably talk about that a little bit more in another video, but basically what it does in a nutshell is it contains elements inside of it that are absolutely positioned. So those elements will be positioned absolute according to the whatever parent element that they're relative to. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to give it a height of 50 pixels. And for right now, I think, why don't we also add a padding, 1em. Actually, we'll go 0, 1em. What this is going to do is it's going to put an em is a measurement, and we can learn more about those later. But it's basically going to put one of those on each side of this this parent container. And we're using shorthand to do this, which is basically the first parameter that we put inside of this rule set that we're creating, this property. We're giving it a value. The first parameter is top and bottom, and the second one is left and right. There's also another shorthand way to do it and add 4 options as well. I'm not familiar with actually what goes where. It's normally trial and error for me with that. But having 2 parameters, it's pretty simple to remember that the first one is top and bottom, while the second parameter is left and right. Alright, I don't think that this is quite doing what we want yet, but we are going to proceed anyways. Alright, next what we're going to do is we're going to give it a display of flex. And basically what I want to do with this is I want to throw the logo over to one side and the hamburger menu over to the other side. And we're going to be doing that by justifying the content space between and align items or center. So I am a huge advocate of Flexbox and I love it. And if you can actually get to know it a little bit more, it's pretty awesome. But justify content, what it does when we're just kind of on the default flex positioning is it's going to determine where our elements lie on a horizontal axis, while the align items is on the vertical axis. So what we want to do is we want to put as much space between the elements that we have inside of our vertical axis with space between, and on our horizontal axis we actually want to center them inside of our header. So that is kind of what we want to do. And I'm curious as to why things are not being applied, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the video real quick. Actually, I'm not going to pause the video. We're going to go ahead and troubleshoot this together. So I've got my class there. I'm going to inspect it real quick. And I almost wonder if my issue with my my JavaScript right now. I've got some hidden JavaScript things. I wonder if those are what's getting in the way of this, because none of my styles are actually being applied. And that's what I'm assuming, so yep, that was the issue. Commented out some code in my JavaScript and CodePen freaked out, but that's okay. CodePen is still favorite tool there. So at least for browser-based text editing. If that didn't make sense, don't worry. I realize that might be kind of a nerdy comment there. Alright, I'm going to kind of change things out here a little bit. There's my other text editor of choice, Visual Studio Code. And it's not working for me. Anyways, this is what we'll do. Okay. So now we've got those styles rolling. Something that I would like to tell you guys is I already have a couple of colors just set up, kind of just generic colors that wanna try and use. So that's what's going down right now. And we actually have something for the logo. We're probably going to use this this red color here for the text of the logo. So we're going to go ahead and style that. Font family, sans serif. I'm just using pretty basic fonts here. Font size, we'll go with 35 pixels. I think I'll just go 30 pixels. Oh, sorry, font color is not a property. And we're going to do... I am using CSS Variables. If you have not watched the video on CSS Variables, it will pop up now, but it's pretty handy tools that we have using CSS Variables. They're pretty useful. Okay, font weight. Just kind of want this to look a little bit more like a generic logo. So there, we've got it. And I forgot, but I'm going to add a background color to our header. Give it the white color. It looks pretty much identical to white there, doesn't it? Oh, that's why I put light, not white. So we have like a light and dark and blah blah blah. So that's what we'll be using for our header color. Alright. Okie dokie. So I actually applied all the styles to the logo, which is the box, instead of the actual text of the logo. So I'm actually thinking that this would be better used in here. We'll just wait to see what we can do with this for a little bit later, the actual logo box. And so I'm probably going to just change that to container class name, just to make it a little more descriptive. Now, you're free to use images or whatever assets that you would use for a blog, or not a blog post, sorry, that's what's on my mind, but for your logo. So you're free to use, I mean, if it is just text-based and you want to replicate that with CSS, then you could throw that in here for the logo, or you could add in an image or however else you'd like to build your logo. But this header is just based on a 50 pixel width, so it's just good to keep that in mind. But let's beautify this a little bit. Let's we don't really like this the nav links over here, so what we're going to do is we're going to set the position. Yes, position. Okay. Absolute. So right now our navigation is absolutely positioned relative to the header. We're just going to kind of pop it off and then throw it back on where we want it. And we want it to be a 50 pixel distance from the top. So right now our nav is resting right there, right below the header where we want it. We've just got some significant styling to do. So we're going to make actually left 0, right 0. Just kind of putting in these parameters because we can, but what I'm basically saying is position yourself absolutely 50 pixels below the top of the header, which we know our header is 50 pixels already, and then go to the full width of the viewport or of the screen. So this navigation bar is going to go from the left to the right, all the way. And what we're going to actually do here is kind of interesting. We're going to set the height to 0, and the overflow to hidden. Let's just see what this does. Alright, great. So our navigation is not visible, but it is technically there. It is hidden right now. And that is exactly what we want. We're going to kind of learn more about why we want this here in just a second. But before we learn about that, we actually need to add a new class that I forgot to add. And we're going to use nav open. And the height, I'm just going to give it a height of 250 pixels. And so what we're going to do with our JavaScript is when we click our hamburger icon, just as we did before with the JavaScript, we made it do the cool animation, we're going to also drop down our menu. And now we're going to do this without jQuery or anything else, just vanilla JavaScript and beautiful CSS, which can do so much. So looking forward to showing you guys that here right now. I used to always use jQuery to do the slide toggle. I always thought that was pretty cool, but it turns out you can make your own function for that in JavaScript and fairly easily. It was one thing that I kind of thought was impossible to replicate the same way, but since CSS is so awesome, it does most of the work. So that's pretty cool. Now to make all this smooth, we're going to add a transition. I'm just going to go ahead and add it to the height of the nav element, and we're going to give it 250 milliseconds. Go ease in, out. What this is going to do is when we apply the class of open, it's going to say, hey, make sure this looks nice scrolling up and scrolling down like a navigation should. And while we're at the nav, let's go ahead and give it the background color, the same background color as the header. It might be cool to change that up. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we'll give it a dark one, but just to start out, we'll give it the light color. Alright, now I kind of want to see what this looks like, so far. Okay, so far so good. We've got the navigation going across the whole length of the screen. And now we're going to go ahead and program the JavaScript that's needed to make the scrolling action work. So when we click the hamburger icon, we're not going to do any additional styling quite yet because the rest is just kind of for aesthetic. It doesn't really need to be represented to show the functionality of the navigation menu dropping. So you're free to style things however you like. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to uncomment some code here. And it should look fairly similar to the code that we wrote for just the hamburger menu. In fact, it really works along with it pretty well. So I've just declared selector variables, so they're going in and selecting the elements in the DOM for the box that our hamburger button is inside of, that invisible box, as well as the button itself. And now we also have our navigation selected. So when we click the box, we're toggling a class, CSS class, on our hamburger icon that makes it turn into an X to close it. But we're also just going to add another class to our navigation. Really simple and really easy. So all we've had to do is declare one more variable that goes out and gets that navigation that's hidden. And when this event occurs, very simple click event, we're going to go ahead and just throw on that nav open class. Now real quick, I'm just going to double check to make sure that I've got everything right. And voila! I'm actually pretty happy with that. So we've got our little scrolling nav. So, I mean, that really is all it is to it. We already have something that's mobile responsive to show our navigation. So you now don't have an excuse to build websites that don't have mobile responsive navigation menus. You've learned how to do that with this menu drop down button and the hamburger icon, which is so nice. But there's so much more that we can do with this to just make it look better. I'm really, just to save time, going to put in just some basic styles for the list and for the list items, so that we can kind of get a little bit better visual for it all. And to do that, make sure that this is visible at all times. And for the actual list, since it is a list, we need to remove the padding. I know. Let's see what that does. Alright. List style, we don't want any like bullet points or anything, because in the end these are all just links. They're not actually part of a list, but we're formatting it that way in our HTML. Just go ahead and put none. And I think that's what we will do for now on the list. The items, however, no, let's go links first. I'm actually going to do a funny thing here. I'm going to make the links actually display block. That's kind of interesting. I want them to retain their behavior as links, but I also want them to take up space. I don't want them to just shrink to the size of the content. We're going to go ahead and give it a padding of 1em. Let's see what happens. Didn't get the results I wanted. So, nav link. Oh, that's funny. There we go. So, looks like actually set this to height auto and see what happens. Oh. That actually removed what we really wanted. That's very interesting, because we want that scrolling effect. That's kind of the whole reason we're doing this, to make it cool and also mobile responsive. So I'm going to just increase the size here to 300. Just kind of have that temporary, it's just a temporary fix. Actually, it probably would be a good idea to get the exact height and everything, but for sanity's sake, we'll keep it at this. Alright, so our padding was applied. And so we're gonna, no, we don't want list style. Text decoration. This is a fun little property, and we want none, but we can add all different kinds of things here, so that's pretty interesting. Now for the links, I'm thinking, what color do we want? Let's double check here. So I set my primary text color as what's light, and that's already there because I was originally thinking for a dark theme, but then I looked at the hamburger menu button, and I guess that could really be easily changed. So I'm going to just quickly take the next little bit to change this to the darker theme, because okay, I have an error. Alright, we'll go with it. It's interesting. I am going to change that the color of that though. And we're just going to jump into our hamburger button here. So it's actually kind of nice. We're kind of starting our own little style guide. I gotta go to the before and afters real quick. Wow, this video is dragging on much longer than I wanted, but more stuff for you guys to watch. So thank you for spending your time watching this video. Awesome. Cool. So that pretty much is it for the video. I'm going to actually continue just for a little while longer and style these items out a little bit more. But we kind of have our little dark themed navigation there. Feel free to use this and to check out this code here on CodePen. If you're reading this on the blog or watching this video on the blog, I will already have CodePen embedded there, so you'll be able to really look at that. And this is actually a pretty sweet little toy here. I think in the future what I'm going to do is make some different variations of this. So watch out for those. And don't forget to like the video if you found value in it, or if you found that you actually like it, you found it entertaining. That would make me happy. But I appreciate you watching this video, and hope to see you in other videos. So take care. Bye-bye.